and ultimately be able to assess them at the classroom level.
As our students go out there, they need to have acquired the skill or the competency to teach life skills or to integrate life skills in their teaching as well as their values. And more so, they also need to have acquired the competency also to assess the life skills and values.
On the fourth day, the entire team of assessors and monitors went for a pilot field study in the previously enumerated areas ahead of the actual exercise. On 22nd April 2024, the assessment kicked off in earnest, with caregivers allowing ALiVE assessors into their homes while appreciating that nurturing life skills and values needs concerted efforts of different stakeholders at home, at school, and beyond.
Respect is very important. It makes a parent appreciate their children and bless them. Respect also makes a child be acceptable in the society.
In Kariobangi village in Mwatate, Taita Taveta County, we find young Marilyn Ewa watering her kitchen garden. She has improvised a watering can from a recycled water bottle. And drop by drop, she gives life to her beans, vegetables, and sugarcane.
She tends her kitchen garden here, and she has also planted trees at school which she waters. Such nurturing begins here at home. She is an excellent performer in class, and she presses on despite our many challenges. I encourage her to focus on her studies, knowing that God will help her to complete her studies and she will shine someday. When I grow up, I would like to be a doctor.
It is such simple steps that exhibit adolescents' ability to solve problems and be useful within their social spaces. Marilyn, just like other teenagers, also sat down and responded to our assessment questions, which aimed to appreciate how much they understand the 3 skills and the 1 value that ALiVE aimed to assess.
When I encounter a problem at school, like if water spills on my book, I spread it in the sun to dry. When someone annoys me, I report them to the teacher. If they take away my pencil, rubber, or my book, I ask them to return it to me.
When somebody offends me, I will leave him, because when somebody offends you, that is behavior. I don't like beating people.
No, so you just leave him, eh?
Yes, I will warn him.
There are young people who fear to share what affects them with the parents. But if they come to these groups, they start together as peers, then they are listening to their views and they can be helped.
Collaboration particularly involves a high degree of interaction and interdependence, accommodating the views of others and maintaining focus on the goal.
E.g., when you are doing maths and someone doesn't know, she can come to me so that I help her, or I can just go to the board and help the whole class. It helps us share minds. For example, if you don't know something and maybe someone knows it, she can help you to know it also.
My favorite subject is integrated science and maths. I share because sometimes if mine is wrong, he can correct me. If his is wrong, I can correct him. So we share to correct each other where there is a wrong.
The skill can be seen as requiring 3 main dimensions: communication, working together, and negotiation.
Communication opens doors. It is important for a child to speak out and express themselves. Some go to school with just a bar of soap, hoping to get help to study. Some of the bright but needy students approach us leaders directly and told us their fees problems, even when their parents remain quiet about their struggles. Eventually, the learners who spoke out got sponsorship to join Form 1, for instance.
In administering the tool for problem solving, respect and self-awareness, each task is read out aloud to the adolescent.
Bahati na marafiki zake walikuwa wakienda kwenye sherehe. Njiani
This is followed by asking a series of questions, the answers to which provide item-level data. The coding of the responses is enacted in real time, with the test administrators who are familiar with the coding rubrics encoding the responses into the Kobo Collect application installed on handheld devices. The aim is to appreciate contextual expression of these life skills and value through specific tasks.
CBC curriculum has brought along many changes. Now my school-going children can iron my clothes and cook well, even do chapati. They can welcome guests well, even in our absence. Previously, children did not know how to cook, do laundry, but CBC systems has helped them to perfect this course.
I am grateful that my daughter helps me when I leave for my errands. She takes care of the goats and cooks for her grandmother. I only come in to help her in the evening. I will start by saying that a child follows the path you train him into. Character shaping begins with the child. If the parent does not guide the child well, they get lost. So they drag us into trying to shape their errant children. That is why we insist that values begin at home, so that the child carries the same to school. I counsel her to focus on her studies first, finish
Good afternoon to all of you who are joining us today. And I believe to some of us it's a good morning or a good evening, depending on where you are joining us today. We are very happy and excited to have you with us. And as ALiVE, we cherish that you created this moment and you are sharing this afternoon and early morning or evening with us. Let me take this opportunity to request that everyone, you can just let us know your name, your organization, the role that you perform within your organization. This will help us to get to know you better and also get back to you at some point later on. For those joining us for the very first time and who may not know us that very well, ALiVE is a collaborative initiative of the Regional Education Learning Initiative. We fondly refer to the Regional Education Learning Initiative as Kenya journey towards empowering educators, learners, and communities with accessible, contextualized, and transformative assessment tools. ALiVE understands the critical role of assessment in improving learning outcomes, and so we have taken a lot of effort and time to develop a robust, very inclusive, contextual, and adaptable tools that cater to diverse learning needs. By making these tools open source, we are championing equity, collaboration, and innovation, and working towards ensuring that education is within reach for every learner, regardless of their context or circumstances. As you will see our platform today, it's more than a repository of tools. It's a gateway to fostering shared knowledge, building partnerships, co-creating solutions that are resources therein, and engage with the community that we are fostering, so that together we are able to turn data into actionable insights and this impactful change. I very heartfelt thank you to all of you that are joining us today. And I chapter to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see such a huge turnout to this event. There are some new names, so welcome to the launch of this platform, a much-awaited milestone in the ALiVE journey, as Stella shared with us. So I'd like to just take you through a little bit through the journey of ALiVE. If you could. Focus towards a framework that can measure values and life skills. And we wanted to adopt from our colleagues from WESO and others who were doing these types of assessments to really bring light to what the issues are and to also understanding how we respond to those issues. And if you can move to the next slide. And so this is how we responded as ALiVE. We decided to chart out on this uncharted territory and identified 3 skills as well as 1 value that we could focus on in terms of assessing, learning how to assess, but also then providing evidence. And so we focused on problem solving, collaboration, and self-awareness, as well as the value of respect. And you can see that these were somehow in one way or another present across the East African context, whether it's through curriculum or through the work that we were doing ourselves. After going through a rigorous and an intensive 10-month process, we developed an assessment tool. And that is the assessment tool that we are sharing with you today. And if you go to the next slide, where we were able to administer across the 4 jurisdictions in 3 countries to over 45,000 adolescents between the ages of 13 to 17 and produce a robust data and evidence around life skills and values for the first time. But what was special about it was that the tool and assessments were produced by us for our own children to unearth and enlighten us on what's going on with values and life skills in our sector. If you can keep moving, I'd like to just then share where we are at right now as ALiVE. We have moved into a second phase where our aim is to, of course, utilize the capacities and the information, the data that we've collected to be able to shift systems in terms of curriculum, in terms of assessment bodies, working with teacher training institutions, but also enhance capacities, produce more resources, and then also encourage a community of learning and sharing of this evidence across not only the region, but also the globe. And so this is where we're at right now. And this is why we have the opportunity to present this platform to you. The open source platform, if you can go to the next slide, sits under the assessment shift pillar. And the assessment shift pillar's focus is on enhancing capacities, producing more, let's say, a critical mass of local experts in life skills and values, but also the resources and tools that these experts could use to generate evidence. Next slide, please. And so these tools are what we're sharing with you today. Some of the achievements that we've been able to achieve through the ALiVE Academy or through the assessment shift includes the growth of an ALiVE Academy, a community of experts. We are 65 at the core, but through that core and through intensive training, we have been able to reach over 1,600 experts across the region, whether they are curriculum experts or officers from assessment institutions, tutors at the teacher education institutions, or even teachers themselves. We've been able to touch in one way or another and enhance their capacities in assessments, in understanding these life skills in depth. But we've been also able to integrate and work with the key pre-service institutions, Kenyatta University, Makerere, Chambogo, University of Dar es Salaam, State University of Zanzibar, as well as teacher training colleges and Machakos, to help us to integrate and that is there for us to really produce the type of teams in the classrooms that are able to not only assess, but also nurture these skills. And then finally, establishment of a repository of tools. And this is what we have here today. And so why is this open source platform important? We, of course, I feel, this is an important milestone and something that's offering the emancipation that we experienced as ALiVE, because we experienced an emancipation when we realized that we could develop assessment tools contextualized for our context. We have the tools to be able to assess our own children in our own context. And so being able to offer these contextually relevant tools for others to be able to use is for us sharing that emancipation. And so this is why, one of the first reasons why it's so important for us. And of course, it is a given that when it's open source, it's accessible. And so the accessibility and inclusivity, a principle and a key pillar of RELI as a network, equity and inclusion. We have seen that this open source platform will open up and allow for educators, organizations working in various different contexts to be able to assess and embed, these skills within their context, whether it's in pastoral or it's in urban slums or it's in coastal areas, or all children with diverse backgrounds. For those with these children to and the importance of learning and knowledge sharing is a critical part of the ALiVE platform. And so this is what the open source platform provides for us, but then also capacity building, collaboration, and sharing innovations in the space, as well as strengthening data-driven solutions and decision-making for policymakers. And then finally, here at the launch, we hope that we will be but also emphasize the importance of assessments of life skills and values, and illustrate the ability to access the platform, as well as gather feedback to be able to continually improve. So we invite you to engage with us. We invite you to share, ask us questions, and give us inputs that can help us to improve. Thank you so much, and back to you, Ray.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Yes, connected to what Adi just mentioned, today we are launching an open source platform that will house a series of tools and data sets for assessing life skills and values. And what I want to do now is the version of the ALiVE tool that was focused on generating a snapshot of how adolescents function across the competences of problem solving, collaboration, respect, and self-awareness in East Africa, particularly looking at how they would respond to situations that could be seen as problematic, that is terms of problem solving, how they would respond to events that can impact themselves or their community, and how they would work together when faced with tasks that would be difficult to complete alone, but requires the effort, the expertise, or the insights of another person. That in terms of collaboration. Can move on to the next slide. So through a rigorous process that my colleagues have mentioned, that it has been indeed a journey that started with a contextual understanding of what these competences mean in the three countries, trying to hear from the adolescents how they would define these competences, but also from the stakeholders who interface with these adolescents, the parents, the social workers, and the community leaders, the leaders, to try to have that contextual of describing these competences before we dive into development of the tools. So we came up with the definitions, the descriptions, what we call the skills, and then the performance indicators, so observable behaviors that would help us tell that indeed we are measuring collaboration or problem solving. So collaboration, for the tool that we have now, we have collaboration that contains 3 performance tasks, where adolescents are brought together in groups of 4 to perform the task as per the instructions in the tool, and each adolescent is scored based on a 4-point scale that is descriptive in nature. So it's covering communication, negotiation, working together. For problem solving, it has 12 items coming from 3 task scenarios that cover recognizing the problem, gathering information, exploring alternative solutions, and selecting the solution, as you can see from there. Self-awareness, we captured 2 sub-skills, that is self-management and perspective taking, coming from 5 task scenarios. And respect, we covered regard for others, having 10 items scored on a 3-level rubric, as you can see. So you see that for collaboration, it was performance-based, whereas for problem solving, self-awareness, and respect, it was one-on-one with the test administrators supporting the process. Of course, to reach this level, we had a series of workshops, pilot testing, paneling kind of exercise to ensure that the issues of validity and reliability are catered for. So even through the process, we're ensuring that the items that are retained at the end respond or address the competences, but they are appropriate for the adolescents aged 13 to 17. Next slide. So when we collected the large-scale data, as you have heard from Adija, that it was coming from over 45,000 adolescents, we first investigated what we are calling ceiling or floor effects. That is trying to examine whether a large proportion of responses cluster possibly at the lowest or highest values of the scoring rubric. For example, are they clustered at 4 or are they clustered at 1? Because once you start looking at that and you suspect that there's a clustering of responses at a particular level, then you would look into that as an issue that needs attention. So we checked that to ensure that it doesn't distort the whole scale. So then we also looked at the chronobatch alpha as the measure of internal consistency, as most of us might be aware, or measure of reliability of a set of items in a scale, trying to look at how closely related the items are as a group measure the constructs that we're targeting. Then now we applied other tests, especially using item response theory modeling, and we're investigating aspects such as even the fit of the item, evaluating whether the items function as expected, whether there is any item that is distorting the rest of the items in a scale, for example, in problem solving, trying to rule out any issue of bias or whether the item is measuring something else. We also looked at the item spread, trying to look at several things there in terms of item spread. One, whether the items were able to cater for the low, medium, and high levels or abilities of the adolescents, but also looking at the clustering of the items in terms of their difficulty, whether there are some tasks or items that were seen as more difficult or easier to endorse by the adolescents or not. But most importantly, looking at whether our are functioned as expected at increasing level, but also helping us to set benchmarks through that separation so that we're able to come up with descriptive levels describing what adolescents were able to do. Then we also, among other things, looked at what we're calling differential item functioning, trying to look at across the 4 jurisdictions whether there are any items that function differently in some jurisdictions than others, so that we are able to compare the abilities of the proficiency levels of the adolescents across the jurisdiction. So before we went into comparisons, we first ensured that by design of the items, they are functioning similarly across the 4 jurisdictions. So that's briefly the nature of the tool and the data set that we are launching today. And we are happy also to share the reports, both the technical and the manual stress administration guides that are found on the open platform that talk more into what I've said. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ray.
Thank you so much, Ray, and the entire house. It's a privilege to share ALiVE as a gift to us in our program of assessing the girls' life skill to understand their statuses as far as our life skills focus is concerned for girls in secondary school. So having tested the research on so many tools to help us understand if our girls are really having the life skills that we mentor them on, it did not make sense to us at all. So many tools didn't make sense to us, and ALiVE tool came as a gift to us. Next step. Next slide. So we borrowed or we adopted the ALiVE tool to help us understand statuses of our girls as we mentor them with life skills. We call them also soft skills. And our latest boot camp report of 2024 made us to understand through using the ALiVE tool the level of confidence and self-esteem that the girls we are mentoring have, who are able also to understand their level of critical thinking, their communication abilities, self-awareness level, empathetic values, and also emotional intelligence when we used this tool. And we are happy to share the reports. Next slide. So as we can see, we always create a conducive environment to help us interact with the girls, as a ALiVE tool gives us opportunity to freely interact with them through the different task items. And you sit with on one so that there is no an interaction in the environment, and administer the task items, and they're able to speak their mind. And in this process, you are able to score them and tell what is their level or statuses as per the skill that we mentored them in, that I talked about them in the earlier slide. So having adopted this tool officially in our programming as Fitch under our education sector, we intend to expand the use of this tool to more secondary school adolescents. We also would love to integrate the ALiVE assessment items into our mentorship curriculum. And we also love to provide ongoing training for the staff in our education program on ALiVE tool, and use the ALiVE tool framework to reflect on the other life skills on our education curriculum. So, house, we have tested the use of ALiVE tool in helping us understand the level of competencies we look for in the girls that we mentor, and we have evidence that it works. I urge anyone that is working in the area of life skills, do not look far. ALiVE tool works. Fitch has evidence that it works. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reino. I hope I can be heard clearly. Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity, of course, to talk about the measurement library. But again, I also want to take this moment to appreciate all of you as a huge team for the effort of creating a platform where all of us in the East African context can go and find tools that can be able to support our work. Yeah, congratulations. It's a huge feat that you have achieved, and I appreciate the work everyone has put in getting that done. Well, back to the measurement library. Yeah, I also thank you for the chance, of course, to talk about the measurement library, which is pretty much similar to the ALiVE platform. Yeah, but the measurement library basically is a collection of measurement tools for assessing holistic learning outcomes for children and youth in crisis context. But it goes beyond that to include tools also in low and middle income, sort of like country resource context. The reason we include, at least for example, tools in low resource context is because we believe they can easily be adapted for use in crisis context as well, because the challenges are pretty much similar. And the measurement library was it? Okay. You go back to the previous slide, please. Yeah, so I was saying that the measurement library was established in 2019, and it publishes peer-reviewed tools which have demonstrated or shown acceptable levels of validity and reliability as well. And we go to the next slide. We do have, every year we put out a call for folks who have developed to submit them with us. And the measurement library has a whole process of submission and peer review as well. Since we peer review all the tools that we put up in the measurement library, so they go through the process. We have a special group, we call it the Measurement Libraries Reference Group, which comprises of experts actually, who support our work. And of course, I invite all of you to join if you want to contribute. They support with the peer review process. So basically, it's a comprehensive process that enables or ensures that the tools that go up to the measurement library meet the set out criteria. So go to the next slide. And I spoke about the measurement library. It is basically like, like the reference group. So it comprises mostly of two groups. One that focuses or rather comprises of individuals with psychometric experts, and they support the measurement library with the review of some of the psychometric properties of the tools. And I'm happy to see we have a few psychometricians who support actually the measurement library. And then we also have another group, group 2, that focuses on reviewing the utility of the training materials. And this group comprises mostly of practitioners, folks who work in the field with these tools, and they know how, the challenges around these tools. Next slide, please. The measurement library publishes tools in 3 main categories. We have what you call the seedling category. It means the tool does not have sufficient evidence, but it is promising, and therefore we categorize such kind of tools as under development. By saying it is promising or doesn't have sufficient evidence, we mean it does not have acceptable evidence on reliability and validity. So usually every tool we publish must have at least one type of validity and one type of reliability. So it just means that the evidence on the tool is a bit weak as deemed by the reference group members or the reviewers. And therefore, we also have the second category, that is the young tree on the previous slide. And it just means that the tool has some degree or some good evidence on reliability and validity, but it requires testing with different samples or contexts as well. And for the full-grown tree, it means the evidence is solid, is strong, and therefore the tool can be adapted in different contexts. The measurement library, next slide, please, also has, is guided by a set of ethics, and it actually publishes, all the tools published in the measurement library are available as open access, as public goods. And we have guidance on copyright issues and licensing as well, which ensures the credibility of the measurement library, and also addressing issues of citation, attribution, and so forth. So the tools do undergo a thorough process, so they must always meet those kind of requirements. Next slide. Yeah, maybe you can click on the link there, and I spend maybe 1 minute to sort of like run through the measurement library, if possible. Otherwise, if we run out of time, it's okay. I think maybe you can share the link with everyone, and they can always go through the measurement library platform just to see what's available there. Currently, if you go to the next slide, if it's not possible to showcase the measurement library, it's okay. At the moment, or currently, the measurement library has about 31 tools published, and we have about 3 tools which will be published soon, and about 7 tools which are under review at the moment. And what next? Library, a lot of things going on. We are thinking about the sustainability of the measurement library, how we can enhance, especially capacity development, and I'm glad this is something you're talking about, just to ensure that we have experts in the communities around the globe, especially in the EIE context, that can support the development of tools for different purposes for different contexts, just to make sure that we are able to assess learning outcomes that is very specific to the needs of children and youth in those specific contexts. Thank you.
Hello. Are you looking for resources around life skills and values? Look no further than the open source platform developed by Action for Life Skills and Values in East Africa, or ALiVE. The platform is a comprehensive data repository and tools bank where you can freely access contextualized assessment tools, such as scenario-based and performance-based task items, developed by more than 50 local experts, as well as a data set of life skills and values outcomes from the large-scale assessment of adolescents across East Africa that took place in 2022, and a pool of training manuals and data reports. How do you get to the platform? To access the ALiVE open source platform, go to www.alive-reli.org/open source. Once you get to the page, scroll to the bottom of the page and click Access the Open Source Platform button. And you're home. While on the platform, you can select what you're interested in, whether it's tools, data, or reports. You even have the opportunity to peek into the content before downloading. Check out frequently asked questions and even add to the list of questions yourself. For accessing the tools, click Download Tool. A form will appear to allow you to read through and confirm you agree to the terms and conditions. An account is created for you, and login credentials will be sent to your email. You can use the same details to access the next time. And that is how you land on a mine of resources. You are at liberty to read and download the tool of your choice. Then you log out. See you again. The ALiVE open source platform will be updated periodically to provide a rich experience for users, stretching it to cover 6 to 17-year-old respondents and school-based assessments to meet a variety of learning objectives. The platform will be tailored to support policy and program development for essential life skills and values in Africa. This is the ALiVE way of showing the world what we have learned and produced since 2021. Grab a resource today and enrich your understanding of life skills and values. Learn with us, grow with us. We are ALiVE.
When we start the 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
We are really pleased to release a new book to the global education community. This book is titled The Contextualization of 21st Century Skills Assessment in East Africa. We are members of the Regional Education Learning Initiative working in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Our work and our vision is rooted in the conviction that our children require life skills and values. This is our way of calling the 21st century skills or social-emotional learning competencies and other terms that are used in other contexts. We conducted a household assessment that reached more than 45,000 adolescents in close to 37,000 households. And this large-scale assessment might be arguably the largest piece of work or assessment conducted in the context of East Africa. This book is very unique. What is contained in this book is our own emancipation, is our own telling of a story, rather than other people telling our story, rising up to the occasion so that we are in charge of our story. Many countries in sub-Saharan Africa have not been able to do such work. So we are really proud and we congratulate everyone who participated in writing this book. More than half of them are first-time authors for the work they have done that is splendid in getting our voice heard.
The ALiVE tools were developed with the purpose of being used for a diverse group of adolescents. This diverse group of adolescents included in and out of school adolescents, age range 13 to 17 years, from rural and urban contexts, as well as across educational levels. Therefore, the test development team ensured that these aspects are considered in the tool development process, such as the think aloud processes, the pilot testing, and the paneling process. Furthermore, during the analysis of the large-scale data, we ensured that we investigate aspects of validity and reliability. And before we went into checking the scale reliability aspects, we first looked at the descriptive statistics to help us understand the distributions or the patterns in the various items. Then we now check the scale reliability coefficients to help us to understand the consistencies in the scales. Then we looked at item parameters and the spread of the adolescent responses that helped us to set benchmarks for use in the reporting, but also to check whether the responses or the items conformed to the assumptions that we had set forward. All these aspects helped us to understand the validity and reliability of the tool.
And the tool was administered in a way that the design tool used around 40 minutes, and it was one-to-one oral survey to adolescents, and it was household based. That also additional to that, in terms of collaboration, because that was a bit different in nature, we used an approach of having a group of adolescents working together. So we had 4 adolescents in one group, and we have girls and boys, and then a mixed group where administrators were able to focus on only 2 adolescents, and then let them record everything they do, and later on able to score and know the performances of each of the adolescents participated in a group. In addition to that, we did the household survey to know together the economic status of the family and the literacy level, to see how the capacity of reading and interpreting a text pegged at grade 4, but also digital literacy, just looking at the fluent of using those technologies, the gadgets, and the access of those gadgets with the adolescents. So we were able to tell.
We are ready to collaborate with the world until when we achieve our vision that every learner in East Africa acquires values and life skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray, for steering us very well. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. To say congratulations to the ALiVE team for this particular milestone. Ladies and gentlemen, we now would like to take a few minutes to deepen a conversation around what this milestone means to the entire aspect of nurturing and assessment of 21st century skills. And to help us to have this particular conversation, I have a distinguished panel of 2 ladies and 2 gentlemen. First, allow me to welcome Dr. John Mugo, who is the Executive Director of Zizi Afrique Foundation and the Principal Investigator of ALiVE. Second, we have Professor Esther Kerr from the University of Melbourne in Australia, who is a global expert in the field of 21st century skills and who has been providing technical leadership in the ALiVE processes. Third in my panel is Dr. Mary Goreti Nakabugo, who is the Executive Director of Uwezo Uganda and the co-PI for the system shift pillar of the ALiVE project. Last but not least, we are joined by a partner and a friend, Professor Samson Ndigi, who is the Executive Dean, School of Education at Kenyatta University. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, you must be reeling in the excitement that this particular milestone has actually closed. And I wanted to begin by just going to Dr. John Mugo and asking, Dr. John Mugo, this is definitely a very important milestone for us. What exactly, in actual terms, does open sourcing mean? What do we hope to achieve from this? And why is it so important in the vision and the mission of ALiVE?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam, and congratulations to the ALiVE team. I feel proud to be part of this journey and to be working with many wonderful colleagues across the countries in the region. So open sourcing is our style, is our posture. We believe, because this is groundbreaking work, not many people have worked on these competencies, especially in our region in Sub-Saharan Africa. Then it calls for generosity for those that are ahead to share what we are creating so that others also may benefit from this. And that's why you'll find even the book that was shared, we had to pay for open sourcing, and we knew it was not an option for us. Because why spend so much time writing a book when we know that many of the students at Kenyatta University, where Professor here on the panel is from, cannot afford to buy this, and yet we want this to inform processes. So this is part of our DNA, is part of our philosophy, that because we are funded, donors' money, and we are not using our own resources to do this, then we must extend the same generosity to the people on our continent. There are 3 key issues why open sourcing is important for us. One is the technical contribution. When we started this work, there was anyone who could be called anything near, specialist or expert in East Africa. And now we are proud that through this process, we have been able to train many people from government, from university, from organizations in Raleigh and everywhere on how to deconstruct these competencies in our context, on how to prioritize. So our technical contribution is in contextualization. We have a ground-up assessment that we are sharing through this platform. And this is also the largest data set of these competencies on our continent. The second reason is sharing. We have this resource and we want to make it available. We are sharing tools, we are sharing data sets, we are sharing our expertise, but we are also sharing our story. And the third reason why this is important is voice. That we have the opportunity through such platforms to tell our own story. We have the privilege to augment voices of the 45,000 adolescents that we assessed. to augment circumstances of the 37,000 households that we visited. And if everyone doing this kind of work moves also towards open sourcing, then we think we can be a big community of people doing this and sharing and promoting learning and supporting each other to grow. This is why we have to do open sourcing. This is why we are here today. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Mugo. You paint a very optimistic picture in terms of how people can be able to leverage this important resource and together help us grow in this area of values and life skill nurturing and assessment. I want to go to Professor Estekea. What are some of the trends in the assessment and teaching of 21st century skills that we have to be aware of?
Thank you, Sam. I think actually there's very little interest in assessment of these competencies in their own right. However, we do see differences across the globe, and I'm just going to give you three sort of examples. One is we see in the Philippines, for example, in their national assessment system, they include subject level items that incorporate skills as well as having subject level items that stand alone. So they have two things there. One where the subjects and the skills are integrated, and another where the subject stands alone. It's the Philippines with a picture of how students know or understand the content alone that's in their curriculum, but it also shows how they perform when they apply that content using the skills. So it's very, very useful in terms of giving information about how deep student learning is. The second example, Australia, we do not assess the skills at all, but there is an assumption that what we call the general capabilities in Australia are integrated into teaching, both in terms of pedagogical method and in terms of perspectives on what is taught. And so the education system there provides very detailed and explicit examples of how to do this, a lot of material resources. So the materials link the general capabilities, the skills, with every subject and every grade level as guidance for teaching. So it's much more of a teaching orientation. When we look at most systems, the third example, most systems these days are endorsing these sorts of capabilities, but they're not actively or explicitly nurturing them, nor are they actively or explicitly assessing them. We do have many countries that tend to incorporate more into the pedagogical strategies, but a lot of that is not so explicit. So in these ways, really what's happening here in East Africa is ahead of what's happening in many other jurisdictions. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you very much, Prof. And it's interesting to see that East Africa, you say, could be leading the pack. And I actually want to bring us back to the East African education context and looking at the reforms that are taking place, competency-based curriculum, the larger education reforms. Dr. Mary Goretti Nakabugo, what do you see as the potential or the opportunities that exist for the utilization of these tools that we are open sourcing today? Is Dr. Mary Goretti there? Okay. We totally understand.
All the three focus East African countries, including Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, including Zanzibar, the island of Zanzibar, all curricula has moved into context-based. The challenge is the resources and the capacity to ensure that the teachers, the educators are able to nurture these life skills and also be able to assess them, especially the assessment component. So the open sourcing that we have launched today provides another avenue for educators, for researchers, for curriculum developers in East Africa, in the 3 East African countries, to have a resource, because one thing is that maybe the resources that are available elsewhere could be less accessible and unaffordable. So what we are doing here is to try and democratize the access to these educational resources at a low cost, almost no fee, because the cost that one needs here is maybe accessibility to the internet and digital literacy. The other opportunity that we have here is the opportunity which John also talked about, the opportunity for localization. Yes, we did customize these resources to the context in which is relevant to the East African context. But when we open source, East Africa having a linguistic diversity, the resources are free, they are open, and anyone can actually, somebody's aggressively knocking at my door, sorry. So people can actually also translate them to the various languages. What we have open sourced here initially is largely English, but we also translated these resources into other languages, and being open source, others can also translate them in the languages that are applicable to their contexts. Thirdly is the issue of capacity building. We acknowledge that capacity for assessing life skills and values, but let alone nurturing them, is kind of limited. And as colleagues we are sharing initially, we have demonstrated how we have in the process contributed to developing this capacity in the East African context. But open sourcing them also, as people navigate the resources, it can contribute to capacity enhancement, not only for assessing these life skills, but maybe also digital literacy. Because as you navigate, we take you through how to access them, and thereby also enhancing those other additional skills that are needed in real life. I think lastly, in the interest of time, is the issue of the policy influence. If in a context in East Africa, where data and tools are inaccessible, when we open access our tools and data, we are setting an example also to the policy makers, because there is quite a lot of data and tools that could be owned by the systems themselves, the education systems. But the challenge has always been, how accessible are those? They're kind of closed. When we open source as non-state actors, maybe we are also sending an example to the systems to open up their tools and resources to the researchers. That where we are actually diversifying the resources, but also making it possible for the researchers to do more research, and also to the educators to be able to utilize them in their classrooms to increase the accessibility and also the learning of these life skills and values that we are promoting. I think that's what I can say for now. Thanks, Sam.
You, Dr. Goriti, you speak very passionately about the role and the centrality of the role of teachers in supporting the assessment and the nurturing of values and life skills. Allow me to bring in a gentleman who works in the academia. Professor Ondigi, I'm just wondering, in view of what the work that the universities do, and particularly teacher education.
Well, thank you very much.
How do you look at this? How do you look at this landscape, and how do you see this tool supporting to help you align, especially with the competence-based curriculum?
Well, I want to Thank you very much, and I want to thank the ALiVE team for inviting me to be part of these panelists here to share the experience of Kenyatta University. What I could say is that in the history of Kenyan education system, Kenyatta University has been training teachers for over half a century now, and we are known to be the best teacher trainer in the Eastern and Central African region. So when we talk of the CPC, we are the first university in the region to have gone CPC, and I'm proud to say that come this December of this year, on the 13th of December, this 2024, we are going to graduate our first cohort who have completed their training in the CPC. What I can say is that it's not been easy. It's been a journey. And when we talk of training of teachers, we train teachers who go out there to teach at all. And when you are undertaking this training task, there is no way you can train a teacher who is going to teach out there, and education, meaning that you empower without training the teachers effectively. So as we train, we give the knowledge, we give the skills. You cannot know how far or to what extent you're prepared this teacher who is going to handle learners in schools, that when they graduate, they have the competencies and the skills to serve society without evaluating what you're doing. I will commend ALiVE in what they have jumped into, because this is one of the areas that is now demanded in the CPC, that ideally this area of assessment and the tools they have come up with that they are willing to share freely with us will go a long way in helping us in our training to be more effective and efficient as we train the learners that we get out there, or we channel out there. What they have come up with, and given what they have shared, indeed this tool is going to assist in a great deal. Once you are aware of what you're training and you get out there to assess yourself, then that assessment tool will help us all as trainers to gauge what you've done at best. And by that tool, it will help you to know areas of weaknesses that you can improve on in order to strengthen the objectives of the curriculum. And if there are any areas of weakness that have not been achieved, that is what has worked and what has not worked, then you are able to improve on that and be able to train at best, such that the products or the teachers we send out there will do their work. Because there is no way you can train without assessing. So what ALiVE has done here is in line with the reforms that we are undertaking in the CPC, and this is going to help a great deal in supplementing our efforts, because you cannot be the best in all. We can be best in training, and ALiVE has come in and has given us a tool which you can use. This shows the working relationship that we are having between us, institutions out here, and stakeholders who are out there willing to collaborate and work together to make our systems work. So I'm grateful for this, what ALiVE has done and our participation in this, because this tool is going to help us be focused and be able to achieve what the curriculum requires us to achieve, because this aspect of actually the life skills and value is very important in the education of a learner, because you can produce a product out there who is not well behaved, who does not add value to society, and then education will not be meaningful. What they chose to do actually is very important, and it adds value into what we are doing. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor. And you've spoken about the need for working in a complementary manner, so looking at how we can bring to bear all our strengths. Distinguished participants, if you have any comments or questions, or please put them on the chat, and we would hope to sample a few of them as we go on. I want to get back to Professor Esther Kerr. You've spoken about the context around the three places. You've spoken about the Philippines, you've spoken about Australia, but also painted and related that to what is happening in East Africa. Looking at the ALiVE tool specifically, and the fact that in many ways you say that the East African region through ALiVE has done some really groundbreaking and pioneering work. What are some of the global spaces that make tools like ALiVE useful?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I think that global perspective is a really important one in the sense that we also need to think about what the tool is designed to do and what many assessments are designed to do. So remember that this ALiVE tool, this version, is designed to provide a picture of competencies at a survey level. So the tool that we're releasing today was not developed in a way that a tool would be that provides in-depth information at an individual level. What this tool does is to provide a broad picture of a population. And so the good thing about that, quite apart from in its own right, is that it provides a basis for others to build on this work, to continue it, and to develop it for additional functions, which is indeed what ALiVE is doing also. But obviously the intention is that everybody can benefit from the progress that has been made. The main place for utilization of a tool like this is for monitoring. And so we know already that UIS is accepting household-based assessment results for reporting against the Sustainable Development Goals. And this has obvious implications when we think about the ALiVE tool, that this is something that can help with reporting against Goal 4.7, which is Education for Sustainable Development. And so that's one very clear place for using tools such as this. The other main use is as a tool to raise awareness, which is indeed, of course, what ALiVE has done, but not only awareness of the skills and the adolescents' capabilities, but also of the reality that we can measure these skills, that we can measure them at household-based level in East Africa, and that we can measure them in the classroom. And this is a major technical advance over the last few years. And so this establishes a base that others should be able to use and diversify their use of tools like this as they build on them and design them according to whatever the function is that they need them for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. And ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to bring to your attention that we did invite a number of our partners from government. We received apologies. A lot of them had other, pitting, events and activities, and they really sent their apologies. Professor Ondigi, you have been in this sector for a very long time, especially working with the exam authorities. And this is a tool that is coming, and it's mostly driven by the non-government sector. I'm just wondering, what has been your experience in terms of how much these examination authorities accept tools that come from sometimes not so much government-driven, processes? Of course, I know we've done co-creation and worked very closely with the government, but in terms of acceptability of these kinds of tools to be used within education systems, what has been your experience?
Well, thank you very much. Once again, I want to appreciate the fact that we in higher education do not work in isolation of other stakeholders who are interested in educational matters. And I would say that we are in a society, and our society, we are comprised of different nations, different communities, and even when we talk of in terms of scholars, that when we talk of having these tools from outside, it is not taken in a bad way, because in a society you cannot work in isolation of others without accepting the ideas of other stakeholders, all those whom you partner with. Because in society, we expect to learn from one another. And if you are a closed society that does not accept ideas from outside, then you will only not know what is out there. And what I can say, like, for example, our NEC, our KICD, our Ministry of Education, Kenyatta University has worked very closely with these institutions that are involved in the education of this country. And what it is, like another organization or another society out there, we have exchanged ideas. And if there is anything that works by accepting tools from outside, they will help you in strengthening your system of education and knowing the extent to which you are assessing the learners. And when you assess the learners, you know areas of weaknesses that will help you improve in your curriculum, that will help you in your training of the trainers who are going to handle students out there. That is, it informs your pedagogy. And once it informs your pedagogy, then you are able to produce products that are acceptable, that are marketable, and which are acceptable. And that is why these institutions, the experience we have had is that we have had an harmonious working relationship that in most cases when we are having issues of sharing, and in universities, you know, that's where research is done, that helps to inform any change. I've realized that we have worked very well with the Kenya National Examination Council. We have worked very well with the KICD, and in this, they have accepted whatever we have. We have learned from them, they have learned from us, and that mutual respect and coexistence is what has brought this country this far, and especially our institution in the training of teachers. So I could say that we have not had any hiccups in this relationship, because if you are a society that is not open to new ideas, then there is no way you can grow. And what I can say, like now we have shared, I can see we are having our professor from Australia. This is the way to go. Otherwise, if we don't, then we'll only be limited to that which we know. And I can say, in short, that we have had a good relationship. They have accepted, or we accept new ideas, and that is the way to go.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. And that aligns very well with the spirit of ALiVE, which is about co-creation and working together and bringing all our strengths together to be able to have something that can be able to serve our children effectively. A comment from Karen Muriuki, who says, in matters of capacity building for purposes of disability inclusion, it would be really important for these tools to be tested among organizations of persons with disabilities to find out on how accessible it is. We realize that a lot of the tools are not very accessible among persons with disabilities, and as a result, they are left out in the decision-making, capacity building, and awareness creation. So Karen, really just raising our attention to the issue of inclusivity, and particularly focusing on people with special needs. I want to go to Dr. Mary Goroti Nakabugo and just, put a challenge to you. They say that the taste of the pudding is normally in the eating. We now have a launch, and this indeed is a great milestone. Are there any challenges that you foresee in terms of applying or usability or uptake of this particular tool, and how much we need to prepare to overcome some of these challenges?
Challenges with these things. One of them is the issue of, it actually goes to the user, the issue of culture sensitivity and localization. When we talk about life skills and values, these vary across cultures pretty drastically. So we hope that our tool is inclusive enough and that people can actually apply it to their own context to make sense. Otherwise, if some of these skills that we are assessing and the tools or items that we've developed are misinterpreted, it doesn't serve the purpose. The second one is the issue of sustainability, which Hadija talked about in that beautiful voice in the video. Yeah, because we have outsourced a tool of 13 to 17 years. We are also planning to outsource in the future for the lower years, but even for the adolescents, things don't remain static. We also need to keep pace and keep updating. So that also depends on resources and availability of people to continue producing new tools. Thirdly is the issue of accessibility. Again, this now goes back to the users. We live in a context where accessibility also may vary from context to context, rural, urban, socioeconomic status. So we hope that people will be able to access it and that it is actually user-friendly. We have made it as user-friendly as possible, but we hope people also find it user-friendly to continue using it. Second last, Sam, is the issue of adoption by education systems, because this tool will only gain currency if it is used. We open source because we want people to use it. But we also work in systems that sometimes are not adaptive. That kind of, especially when we come to teaching and learning or higher education institutions, education has remained very static. We know how people are open to using open access or open resources in their teaching and learning. Perhaps we need, in terms of promoting this, we need to create a lot of awareness on why this is important. Lastly, of course, is the issue of resources, which goes back to sustainability. We need to keep momentum of this, because once we've open sourced this tool, it's not the end. We need to create new tools as much as possible, but all depends on resources. As John mentioned earlier, we depend on the goodwill of funders and so on to keep pace. So we hope we can keep momentum and keep the audience or the users of this tool actually to meet the expectations.
Indeed, the issue of sustainability comes in very strongly, and we hope that there'll be even more people, utilizing these tools as learning to be able to even generate even more resources. Moses Abiero says, great to connect with the community of practice around value development in learners, considering that early childhood development forms the foundation in building capacities and including value development. What is ALiVE's thoughts on cascading the project to cover children 4 and 5 years pre-primary education? I think maybe Moses, maybe I'm not the right person to respond to this, but the tool initially was designed for adolescents, but there has been a process of making the tool usable to a much more younger age. For you, Fred, what mechanisms are in place to ensure transparency, collaboration, and effective feedback within the open source community, and how can occurrence of bias, especially the halo effect, be minimized among teachers administering the tool and students? That is from Gloria Micheni. Many questions and many comments coming in. Additionally, how can we mitigate the Hawthorne effect among students, particularly given their perception of teachers as authority figures, which may lead to provide dishonest responses? So talking about issues that might emerge around the use of the tool, around bias, or social desirability bias. Dr. John Mugo, maybe you can pick one or two of those questions and respond to them. But also please tell us now, where do we go from here? We now have this beautiful launch of these very important tools and resources, and we are all excited. What do we expect to see in the coming days? Dr. John Mugo.
Thank you so much, Sam. Yeah, I have seen the question there around the Hawthorne effect, and as Martin mentioned at the beginning, we have used scenario-based assessments, but also task performance. And using these kind of methods, there isn't the pressure to perform. There isn't a true false or a yes, no. There isn't a score that the learner will get. And so the Hawthorne effect is basically mitigated by the way of the methods of assessment. There's a question around inclusion. And one of the things we did, we invested heavily in elements of language, as Goretti mentioned, translating this into 21 languages. And there have been other efforts to make this tool as inclusive as possible. We haven't reached where it needs to reach because we also recognize our limitation in terms of the capacities we have. And so this is a call also to people in inclusion space, those working with children with disabilities, for instance, those with hearing challenges or issue disabilities, to also come and join the family, so that rather than asking the question from outside, we welcome them in, because this is a space where we all enjoy bringing our expertise to contribute. So I welcome Veronica and those others that are working on inclusion. Come and let's explore the possibility together. I really need to mention some that this way of assessments that we prioritized, as Professor Esther Kea mentioned, is not the best way maybe to measure, and it's not the only way. There are many other ways of assessments. There are many, but we have our own justification on how we arrived at this, and so what we have is our story about how we know the choices we made have worked for our context. So what we celebrate and what we can look forward to, one, as Goretti said, is supporting capacity development. People that are interested in applying and using this, we are going to walk the journey with them. We are going to be there to respond to the questions that you may have, not just now over this panel, but reach out to us in case there's any form of support or any additional information you feel you may have. Just write to that email that is provided over there. Our dream is to contribute to the development of a critical mass of people working on these competencies on the continent. And so this is our commitment as ALiVE, that we are going to support, we are going to walk the journey with people that are interested. The next that Professor Ondigi has mentioned, alluded to, is research. We are going to also be there for researchers. I saw, Kennedy, you mentioned you've already downloaded the dataset and the code and the code book, and it's working very well. We hope that scholars at the university, and I can see several of them here on this call, I've seen Dr. Mugambi and others. If in case you would want to publish a paper and all that on these datasets, we are there to support you to create outputs from this data and to tell the story. And we want to use this as a way of multiplying stories. As you heard from Kandi Alum, I know there are other people here like Alice Ngahu at Duke Aid and others that have used this tool. And so if we have 100 people not just using their ALiVE tool, but also sharing their own tools and what they are doing, then we are basically multiplying stories on the continent. And the last thing is our commitment to systems change. I know I have seen our colleagues from the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development here. I've seen Eunice, who is one of the deputies there. I've seen Nelly Machu, who is our collaborator at KICD. And there might be others from the National Center for Curriculum Development, NCDC in Uganda, or from the Tanzania Institute of Education, from Zanzibar Institute of Education. We are working to make sure that this makes sense and supports the work that the system is doing in terms of not just applying the deconstruction method that is context-based for curriculum, but also taking this knowledge and capacities to improve pre-service teacher training, but also in-service teacher training, and also taking this out also to UNEP, to the National Examinations Councils in Kenya, NECTA in Tanzania, ZEC in Zanzibar. And this is going to be our commitment, because we won't stop until we have achieved our vision of getting all children in East Africa having these competences. And so we welcome you in case you have any idea on how you can apply this on, or even someone else that you need to speak to. Let us commit to this journey together for our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Mugo, and indeed, members, you've been welcomed to be part of this process and to be, part of the people driving this. And we hope that you will heed the call and reach out to the ALiVE team. As we come to a close, 6 things have stood out for me in this particular panel. One is around the spirits and the DNA of the ALiVE project, which is basically about ensuring that resources that have been developed can actually be shared for greater reach and greater usability as part of the technical contribution, but also as part of enriching the evidence base and the conversations. There's still very little interest in measuring and assessing of these values and life skills. But even with the varied context from different places, East Africa through ALiVE has taken up this challenge to be able to lead us to the fray and help to people who can measure these skills. I think the issue of where this can actually be used around the capacity of teachers to be able to nurture and to measure these skills. There are issues around policy influence and democratizing these kinds of resources for greater usability, and the growth of education are going to be things that are very key. Now, form a great part of the advocacy that happens within ALiVE. Around helping them complement their teacher education processes and help them to be able to produce that round teacher. But I also like the very positive feedback from Professor Ndigi about the fact that the examination authorities, particularly in Kenya, have been very receptive to ideas from outside. Professor Kea told us that the main place of this particular tool would most likely be in the monitor of progress, and that there are already partners who are showing interest in accepting and embracing the outcomes of this, and we'll be looking forward to also continue to explore many ways to be able to use this. Talked about applying this to make sense in specific contexts. That is going to be really key. And we're very happy that some translation has already happened. And we are hoping that, again, many more processes would be able to follow this so that there is greater sustainability, but also hopefully the education systems, especially in East Africa, would begin by fully embracing this. Last but not least, Dr. John Mugo has finished on a note where he says, these tools are not necessarily meant to box everyone into feeling this is the only way. But what this process has done is it has confirmed that indeed these skills can be assessed. And we look forward to getting people or interesting you, and we hope you are sufficiently encouraged to use these tools as the beginning of the many things that we can be able to explore in terms of coming up with even more creative ways, or even enhancing the ALiVE tool into being able to be the perfect or the best measurement tool that we hope to have. Ladies and gentlemen, you can continue to be part of the conversation by getting in touch with the ALiVE team and through the social media pages. And for now, Dr. John Mugo, Professor Esther Kea, Dr. Mary Gorete Nakabugo, and Professor Samson Ndigi, thank you very much.
that, as well as a brief evaluation.
Yes, Ray.
Yeah.
Thank you, Khadija. I think I can come in. I'll start first by any more questions which they may want answers or clarifications on. And to start us with, I'll ask Martin Ariapa to help us to respond to one of the questions which was raised in the chat, but we have not got an opportunity to respond. And that question is around their life tools and how inclusive they are for persons who may be having challenges, persons with disability. So that's a question which has been raised. So I would like to ask Martin Ariapa to help us respond to that in line with their life tool. Over to you, Martin.
Thanks so much, Sam. We tried to respond on the chat, but I can mention it again that the visual impairment and the hearing impairment at extreme levels, the ALiVE tool has limitation for it, meaning that the ALiVE tool is not suitable for them because we didn't have the facility to be able to cater for those extreme cases of visual and hearing impairment, of course, in addition to the highest level of concentration, because the scenarios also required someone to be able to listen to the scenario and be able to respond. So the tool was not able to cater for that category. And so we really welcome ideas, insights, collaborations around this so that we can walk into that journey of being inclusive for all learners. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, for that feedback running through the chat. The other questions which were raised around the Hawthorne effect and the alloy effect were comprehensively responded during the panel discussion. The other thing is I'm seeing comments, people appreciating the work ALiVE has done in terms of supporting teacher education in the area of assessment. We appreciate those positive comments. So if there is anyone who has a pending question or something you may need to be clarified, this is your time. You can post the question through the chat. You can even unmute and also speak. If it's possible, you can unmute and also speak, yeah. Or you raise up your hand, you draw my attention, then I give you the opportunity to speak or to give a comment. of these core competencies or the life skills or the generic skills, as well as appropriate competency-based assessment approaches. Then Nelly Machu, this is a good initiative. This will go a long way in enhancing interventions put in place in promoting values and life skills among learners. Thank you so much, Nelly. Then we have our team. There is Ellie Nayenda to everyone. Accessing the assessment tool is a bit challenging in their live open source. That is good feedback, but Ellie, hopefully you have a network, because sometimes the challenge could be associated with the connection issues, but we'll look at it. Then there's Emmy Zoomlamai. Yes, over to you, Nelly. You can unmute and talk to us. Thank you, Zoomlai, for that feedback that you actually have learned through the ALiVE way, the ALiVE process. You have been able to use the same also to adapt it to your area of interest. I invite participants to visit the open source and also get to see the live reports, which also includes their live way, and you'll be able to see the processes which we went through in coming up with the skill structures and the assessment framework. So thank you for that feedback. So is there any other participant who has something to say? Yeah, we are ending this. Amos Aguido, as the upcoming teacher, I'm now equipped and hoping for the best. Thank you. Thank you for that compliment. Akash Patki, we see your comments. We appreciate Koire Fred, Esther Care. Thank you, Prof, for coming in with that comment. So as we move now towards closing this session, I would like to share on the chat room a form where we are going to ask you to give us feedback about how this open source launch, how it has gone, and also feedback on areas where you may find it useful to utilize their live tools. So generally, you give you an opportunity to just give us comments about what you have picked and the areas where you think we can be able to improve. So if you look at the chat room, posted a form, which we request you to interact with it and also give us the feedback. Thank you, and over to you, Ray. So as Ray comes in, maybe we can have a minute as participants open the form and also fill. Over to you, Ray.
You show more than 100 people trying to follow us via this Zoom, but also we had so many other people via following us via other platforms. So we thank you so much for your time. And as we are coming to the end of this event, we would love to really encourage you and ask you to keep engaging with our platform, accessing our tool, and most importantly, giving us feedback on how the tool is performing so that we can be able to keep on improving that tool and making sure that we have a tool that is serving our East African children, but also is informing other children in Africa and across the globe. We also request that you pay attention to giving us feedback on how best we can improve our tool, but also if you see any other way you can come and collaborate with us. I see there's a lot of question around how inclusive our tool is. So we want you also to be part and parcel of the solution. Can you come in with your expertise and collaborate with us to see how best we can make this tool useful for as many learners as possible? And we are going to try our best to address all the questions that have been raised that we haven't been able to address. We're going to do our best to make sure that your questions that have been addressed are also available online so people can access the answers. We're going to be very open for those questions that we might have to come up with answers together. And we hope that you're going to be open to come work with us, to come and collaborate with us, to come up with the answers for that. We, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for all you have contributed to today, this evening, or this morning, or whatever the time that it is where you're joining us from. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for celebrating with us. And thank you because we see that you're going to keep on giving us feedback and working with us and collaborating with us to make this platform a very useful platform in our region. Don't have so many other words to say. And thank you for joining us. And this meeting is officially closed. And I'll take it back to Samuel Mutweleli. I see he has his hand up. Thank you so much, everybody. Asanteni sana.
Just a reminder to the participants, only 11 evaluation questions. So I'm requesting that our participants can spare a minute to just give us feedback on how the launch was and the area, just like what you have requested. They give us feedback on the areas which we may need to improve. Thank you.
In April 2024, the Action for Life Skills and Values in East Africa, abbreviated as ALiVE, embarked on a journey to assess life skills and values in Taita Taveta, Nyeri, and Kisumu counties in Kenya. The assessment targeted adolescents aged between 13 and 17 years old across 1,125 households in the 3 counties. ALiVE aimed to assess 3 life skills, that is, collaboration, problem solving, and self-awareness, alongside the value of respect.
Mosquito, mosquito. Catch it. Kill it.
The assignment began with a 3-day training of assessors who were selected from a crop of teacher trainees. ALiVE's pick of trainees is strategic because the initiative aims to expose teachers to appreciate and identify life skills and values, nurture them, and ultimately be able to assess them at the classroom level.
As our students go out there, they need to have acquired the skill or the competency to teach life skills or to integrate life skills in their teaching as well as their values. And more so, they also need to have acquired the competency also to assess the life skills and values.
On the 4th day, the entire team of assessors and monitors went for a pilot field study in the previously enumerated areas ahead of the actual exercise. On 22nd April 2024, the assessment kicked off in earnest, with caregivers allowing ALiVE assessors into their homes while appreciating that nurturing life skills and values needs concerted efforts of different stakeholders at home, at school, and beyond.
Respect is very important. It makes a parent appreciate their children and bless them. Respect also makes a child be acceptable in the society.
Mtoto fulani ni ana heshima nzuri.
In Kariobangi village in Mwatate, Taita Taveta County, we find young Marilyn Ewa watering her kitchen garden. She has improvised a watering can from a recycled water bottle. And drop by drop, she gives life to her beans, vegetables, and sugarcane.
She tends her kitchen garden here, and she has also planted trees at school which she waters. Such nurturing begins here at home. She is an excellent performer in class, and she presses on despite our many challenges. I encourage her to focus on her studies, knowing that God will help her to complete her studies and she will shine someday. When I grow up, I would like to be a doctor.
It is such simple steps that exhibit adolescents' ability to solve problems and be useful within their social spaces. Marilyn, just like other teenagers, also sat down and responded to our assessment questions, which aimed to appreciate how much they understand the 3 skills and the 1 value that ALiVE aimed to assess.
When I encounter a problem at school, like if water spills on my book, I spread it in the sun to dry. When someone annoys me, I report them to the teacher. If they take away my pencil, rubber, or my book, I ask them to return it to me.
When somebody offends me, I will